It was one of those cold November nights when you just want to wrap yourself in a blanket and forget the world exists. I had been doing exactly that for months. My small apartment had become my cave, my hiding place from everything and everyone. The dishes were piled up in the sink, old coffee cups sat on every surface, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd opened the curtains to let sunlight in. I was a graphic designer, or at least I used to be. These days I barely touched my laptop except to finish the bare minimum work to pay rent. After my marriage fell apart earlier that year, something inside me just broke. I stopped calling my friends. I stopped going to family dinners. I stopped caring about the things that used to make me happy. My sister kept texting me, but I'd just send back a thumbs-up emoji and nothing else. It was easier that way. That Friday night, I was sitting on my couch in the same sweatpants I'd worn for 3 days straight. The TV was on, but I wasn't really watching it. I was just staring at the screen, letting the hours pass by. The clock on my wall showed 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, another meaningless day would end, and another one just like it would begin. Then, at exactly midnight, someone knocked on my door. Not a gentle knock. Not a friendly tap. This was urgent, loud, desperate. 3 sharp knocks that made my heart jump into my throat. I froze on the couch. Who knocks on someone's door at midnight? Nothing good happens at midnight. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they had the wrong apartment. I stayed perfectly still, hoping whoever it was would just go away. But then the knock came again. Louder this time, more insistent. My mind raced through all the possibilities. Was it an emergency? Was something wrong with one of my neighbors? Was someone in trouble? Or worse, was someone trying to break in? I lived alone, and suddenly I felt very aware of how vulnerable that made me. My phone was across the room and I hadn't talked to anyone in days. If something happened to me right now, how long would it take for anyone to even notice? I tiptoed to the door, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked through the peephole, and what I saw made me gasp. There was a woman standing in the hallway, soaking wet from the rain I hadn't even realized was falling outside. Her hair was plastered to her face, and even through the distorted peephole view, I could see that she was crying. She looked to be in her late 30s, maybe a bit older. She was holding a large envelope against her chest, trying to protect it from the water dripping off her coat. She looked exhausted, like she'd been walking for hours. But what struck me most was the look on her face. It wasn't threatening or scary. It was desperate, yes, but also hopeful. Like she was searching for something she'd lost a long time ago. I debated with myself. Every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to screamed at me not to open the door. But something in her expression, something in the way she stood there in the rain at midnight, made me reach for the lock. I kept the chain on, though. I'm not completely reckless. I cracked the door open just a few inches. "Can I help you?" My voice came out shaky and small. The woman's eyes lit up when she saw me. "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I know how crazy this must look. I know it's midnight and you don't know me and I'm a complete stranger showing up at your door like some kind of lunatic, but please, just give me 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes of your time." "I think you have the wrong person," I said, already starting to close the door. "Wait." She put her hand up, not touching the door, just holding it there like a plea. "Your name is Lisa Chen, right? You're a graphic designer? You used to live on Maple Street about 10 years ago?" I stopped. How did she know all that? My old address, my profession, my name. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold air coming through the crack in the door. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Rachel Torres," she said quickly, like she was afraid I'd slam the door before she could finish. "I know, this sounds absolutely insane, but 10 years ago you saved my life. You don't remember me. You have no reason to remember me, but I've been looking for you for months and I finally found you and I need to tell you something. I need to tell you why I'm here because right now, tonight, you need to hear this." I stared at her through the gap in the door. Saved her life? I'd never saved anyone's life. I barely left my apartment these days. This had to be a case of mistaken identity. I think you've got the wrong person, I repeated. I've never saved anyone. You did, she insisted, and now tears were streaming down her face, mixing with the rain. You did, and you don't even know it, and that's exactly why I'm here. Please. I've come so far. I've searched for so long. Just 10 minutes. If after 10 minutes you want me to leave and never contact you again, I will. I promise. But please just let me tell you this story. You need to hear it. There was something in her voice, something raw and real, that made me believe she wasn't dangerous. She was just a person with a story, standing in the rain at midnight, because whatever she had to say couldn't wait until morning. And honestly, what did I have to lose? It wasn't like I was doing anything important. It wasn't like I had anywhere to be or anyone waiting for me. I closed the door, unhooked the chain, and opened it fully. Come in, I said quietly. You're soaking wet. Rachel stepped inside, and I could see her whole body relax with relief. She was shivering, though I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or from emotion. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. I grabbed a towel from the bathroom and handed it to her. Here, you should dry off. I cleared some space on the couch, moving aside the pile of unread books and empty snack bags. Do you want some tea or something? That would be amazing, she said, wrapping the towel around her shoulders. As I moved to the kitchen to put the kettle on, my hands were shaking. What was I doing? I'd let a complete stranger into my apartment at midnight. But somehow it didn't feel wrong. It felt like something was supposed to happen tonight. Like the universe had sent this woman to my door for a reason. I made 2 cups of tea and brought them back to the living room. Rachel was sitting on the edge of the couch, still holding that envelope, still protecting it like it contained something precious. I sat down across from her in the old armchair I'd inherited from my grandmother. Okay, I said, wrapping my hands around my warm mug. I'm listening. Tell me why you're here. Rachel took a deep breath and looked at me with eyes full of something I couldn't quite name. Gratitude? Hope? Desperation? Maybe all 3. 10 years ago, she began. I was 28 years old and I was standing on a bridge in the rain, ready to end my life. My hands tightened around the tea mug. I hadn't been expecting that. Rachel noticed my reaction and gave me a sad smile. I know, she said softly. It's heavy, but please do stay with me. This story has a good ending, I promise. I nodded, unable to speak. Something about the way she said it made my chest tight. Maybe because I understood that feeling more than I wanted to admit. Maybe because I'd had my own dark thoughts lately. Thoughts I hadn't told anyone about. Rachel set her tea down on the coffee table and pulled the envelope onto her lap. 10 years ago, I was a struggling artist. And I don't mean struggling in the romantic, starving artist kind of way. I mean I was barely surviving. I'd moved to the city with big dreams, you know? I was going to make it. I was going to have gallery shows and people would love my work and everything would be perfect. She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Reality was nothing like that. I couldn't sell a single painting. I was working 3 part-time jobs just to afford a tiny room in a shared apartment with 5 other people. I hadn't talked to my family in months because I was too ashamed to admit I was failing. I was alone, broke, and starting to believe that maybe I just wasn't good enough. Maybe I'd never be good enough. I found myself leaning forward, completely absorbed in her story. It felt familiar somehow. The loneliness. The sense of failure. The feeling of being completely lost. That night it was raining just like tonight, Rachel continued. I'd just come from a gallery opening where I'd tried to network. Tried to show my portfolio to anyone who would look. But people just walked past me. One gallery owner actually laughed at my work, called it amateur, said I should probably find a real job instead of wasting everyone's time. Her voice cracked a little, and even though this had happened a decade ago, I could tell the memory still hurt. Something in me just broke. I walked and walked in the rain, not even caring that I was getting soaked. And I ended up on this pedestrian bridge over the highway. I stood there watching the cars go by and I thought, this is it. I'm done. Nobody cares if I exist or not. Nobody would even notice if I was gone. My throat felt tight. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what. Rachel looked up at me and her eyes were wet with tears again. And then you showed up. Me? I said, confused. I don't remember any of this. I swear I would remember. You wouldn't, Rachel interrupted gently. Because to you it was nothing. Just a normal moment in your day. But to me it was everything. She opened the envelope and pulled out a small photograph. It was old, a little faded, and it showed a bridge at night with streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. You were wearing a red jacket, Rachel said, pointing at the photo like she was pointing at a memory I couldn't see. You'd clearly just come from somewhere nice. Maybe the same gallery opening, though I didn't realize that until years later. You walked past me on the bridge and then you stopped. I tried to remember. A red jacket, a bridge? But it was 10 years ago and I'd lived an entire life since then. How could I remember one random night? You turned around and came back, Rachel said, and now she was smiling through her tears. You said, "Hey, I love your jacket." That's how you started. You complimented my jacket, this cheap thing I'd bought at a thrift store, and I was so surprised that I actually responded. I said thank you. She pulled out another item from the envelope, a pressed flower, preserved between two pieces of clear plastic. You asked me if I was okay. You said I looked cold, and instead of lying, instead of saying I was fine like I'd done with everyone else, I told you the truth. I said I'd had a really bad night. And you know what you did? I shook my head, completely lost in this story I apparently lived but couldn't remember. You said, "I'm sorry. Bad nights are the worst. But you know what? Your art is going to touch people someday. I can tell just by looking at you that you're creative. Don't let one bad night make you forget that." I said that. I whispered. You said that, Rachel confirmed. And I asked you how you could possibly know I was an artist. You pointed to my hands. I had paint under my fingernails. Blue paint. I'd been working on a piece earlier that day and hadn't scrubbed it all off. You noticed that tiny detail that nobody else had noticed. She was crying now. Really crying, and so was I. I didn't know why exactly, but hearing this story was breaking something open inside me. We talked for maybe 5 minutes, Rachel continued. You told me you were a graphic designer. You said creativity was hard, but it mattered. You said every artist has moments when they want to give up, but those are exactly the moments when we have to hold on tighter. Then your bus came and you had to go. You said, "Keep painting. The world needs to see what you create." And then you left. She pulled out more things from the envelope. Newspaper clippings, gallery brochures, magazine articles, all featuring her name, her art, her face smiling in photos from exhibition openings. I stepped back from that railing, Rachel said quietly. I walked home in the rain, and the next morning I painted again. I painted that bridge. I painted the rain. I painted the streetlights. And for the first time in months, I felt something. That painting sold. It was the first piece I ever sold, and it led to others. Within 2 years, I had my first gallery show. Within 5 years, I was supporting myself entirely through my art. And it all started because you stopped on a bridge and took 5 minutes to talk to a stranger. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight and tears were running down my face. I couldn't remember that night, but sitting here listening to Rachel, I could almost see it. The rain, the lights, a young woman who needed someone to notice her, and apparently I had. I've been trying to find you for years, Rachel said. I only knew your first name, Lisa, but I never forgot your face. I never forgot that red jacket, and I knew you'd said you were a graphic designer, so I started searching. It took me 3 years, but I finally tracked you down. I found your old apartment, talked to your former landlord, got your forwarding address, and here I am. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm here because I need to tell you something important. I need to tell you that you saved my life that night. Not just physically, you saved me from giving up on my dreams. You saved me from believing I didn't matter, and now 10 years later I'm successful. I'm happy. I'm married with 2 kids. I have a life I never thought I'd have, and it exists because you stopped for 5 minutes. I was sobbing now, full ugly crying, and I didn't even care. But I didn't do anything special, I managed to say. I just talked to you. Exactly, Rachel said, squeezing my hand. You just talked to me. You just saw me. You just showed up at the exact moment I needed someone to remind me I was worth something. That's all it took, 5 minutes of kindness from a stranger. She let go of my hand and looked around my apartment, at the dirty dishes, the closed curtains, the empty food containers, the general sense of someone who'd stopped trying. And now I'm here because I can see you need that same reminder. I can see you've forgotten what you showed me 10 years ago. You've forgotten that you matter. That your presence in this world makes a difference. I sat there in my messy living room, tears streaming down my face, feeling more exposed than I'd felt in months. This stranger, this woman I'd apparently helped years ago without even remembering it, could see right through me. She could see what I'd been hiding from everyone. "How did you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How did you know I needed this?" Rachel smiled gently. "Because I've been where you are." I recognized the signs. The way you hesitated to open the door, like you haven't had visitors in a long time. The apartment that looks like someone's just existing, not living. The surprise in your voice when I said you'd saved my life. Like you couldn't imagine yourself mattering to anyone. I've been there. I know what that place feels like. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, well-worn and filled with pages. "After that night on the bridge after you left, I started something. I was so amazed that a simple conversation could pull me back from the edge that I became curious. I started wondering how many other moments like that I'd missed. How many times had someone affected my life in small ways that I'd never acknowledged?" She opened the notebook and showed me pages filled with handwriting. Dates, names, brief descriptions. I started keeping track. I called it my impact journal. Every time someone did something, no matter how small, that made my life better, I wrote it down. The barista who remembered my coffee order and smiled. The stranger who held the elevator. The friend who texted me at exactly the right moment. All of it. I looked at the pages. There were hundreds of entries, maybe thousands. Years' worth of tiny moments that had mattered to her. "But why?" I asked. "Because when you're in a dark place, you forget," Rachel said. "You forget that good things happen. You forget that people care. You forget that you're connected to the world around you." This journal became my proof. Whenever I started to feel alone or worthless, I could open this and see evidence that I wasn't. That I mattered to people, even in small ways. She flipped to a specific page near the beginning. November 15th, 10 years ago. My name was there, and a long entry about our conversation on the bridge. "You're the first entry in this book," she said. "The one that started it all. And I've filled 11 more notebooks since then." She pulled something else from her bag. A brand new notebook, completely blank, and a nice pen. She handed them to me. "Your turn? My turn?" I asked, confused. "I want you to start your own impact journal," Rachel said. "But we're going to do it a little differently. I want you to write down 3 things right now. 3 moments when you did something that mattered. 3 times when you made someone's life better, even in a tiny way." I stared at the blank page. "I don't think I can. I haven't done anything important in so long. I've just been existing." "That's what I thought too," Rachel said. "But it's not true. It's never true. Our brains lie to us when we're hurting. They make us believe we're useless and invisible. But you're not. Nobody is, so think. Go back as far as you need to. What have you created or done that helped someone?" I closed my eyes and tried to think. At first there was nothing. Just a blank space where my self-worth used to be. But then slowly a memory surfaced. "My nephew," I said quietly. "Last year for his birthday I made him a custom card. I drew his favorite superhero and wrote a story about him being brave. He's 7. His mom told me he kept it next to his bed and read it every night." "Write it down," Rachel said immediately. I wrote it down. My hand shook a little as I formed the words. "Designed a birthday card for my nephew that made him feel brave." "Good," Rachel encouraged. "What else?" I thought harder. "Maybe." 3 years ago, my friend wanted to start a small business. A bakery. She had no money for a professional logo, so I designed one for her for free, just because I wanted to help. Her bakery is still open. She still uses that logo. "Write it down," I wrote it down. And as I did, I felt something shift inside me. A tiny crack in the wall I'd built around myself. "There's a community center in my old neighborhood," I said, the memory becoming clearer. "About 5 years ago, they wanted to paint a mural on their building but couldn't afford to hire anyone. I volunteered. Got some other artists to help. We spent a weekend painting this huge mural of kids playing, and people from different backgrounds coming together. It took forever and my back hurt for days, but when we finished, God, the people in that neighborhood were so happy." Rachel was beaming now. "Is it still there?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I moved away a couple years after that." She pulled out her phone and started typing. After a minute, she turned the screen to show me. It was a photo of a building with a mural on it. My mural, still there. Still bright. Still beautiful. I looked up community centers in that neighborhood before I came here, she said. I found this. I had a feeling you might be the artist. I stared at the photo and more tears came. That mural was still there, still making that neighborhood more beautiful, still making people smile when they walked by. I'd created that and then I'd completely forgotten about it. Write it down, Rachel said again. I wrote it down, and as I did, I realized something. These weren't small things. These were real contributions to the world. These were moments when I'd made life better for someone. How had I forgotten? How had I convinced myself I didn't matter? This is what I need you to understand, Rachel said, her voice intense now. You've been telling yourself a story, that you're worthless, that you don't contribute anything, that the world wouldn't miss you if you disappeared. But that story is a lie. It's a lie your pain is telling you. The truth is in that notebook. The truth is in the nephew who still reads your card. The truth is in the bakery with your logo. The truth is in the mural that's still bringing joy to people you'll never meet. She leaned forward, holding my gaze. And the truth is in me. I'm alive because of you. My children exist because of you. Every painting I've created, every person who's been touched by my art, that all traces back to 5 minutes on a bridge when you chose to see me. That's your impact. That's your ripple effect. I couldn't stop crying. But for the first time in months, these weren't tears of despair. They were tears of recognition, of remembering who I used to be, of seeing proof that I wasn't as worthless as I'd believed. Rachel glanced at her watch. It's been exactly 10 minutes since I started telling you about the bridge. 10 minutes. That's all it took to change everything for me. And I'm hoping these 10 minutes change something for you too. She reached into her bag one more time and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote 3 things down before I came here. 3 things I want you to do in the next 3 days. I'm not going to tell you what they are yet. Open this tomorrow. Give yourself 1 night to sleep on everything we talked about. Then read this and do what it says. Can you promise me you'll do that? I took the paper with shaking hands. I promise. Rachel stood up and I stood with her. I should go. It's late and you need to process all of this. But before I leave, I want you to have my number. She pulled out another small card with her contact information. Call me. Text me anytime. Even if it's 3 in the morning and you're feeling terrible. Even if you just want to tell me about something good that happened, I'm here. You're not alone anymore. We stood there in my doorway and then Rachel did something unexpected. She hugged me. Not a polite, quick hug, but a real one. The kind that says, I see you. I know you're hurting. You matter to me. Thank you. I whispered into her shoulder. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving me, she whispered back. Now go save yourself. You already know how. You did it for me. Now do it for you. She left and I closed the door behind her. The apartment felt different now. The mess was still there, the dishes still piled up, the curtains still closed. But somehow it all felt less suffocating, less permanent. I sat back down on the couch and opened the new notebook. I read the 3 things I'd written. Then I added a 4th entry. Tonight, a stranger came to my door at midnight and reminded me that I exist, that I matter, that my life has created ripples I never knew about. I'm going to remember this. I'm going to hold on to this. I placed the folded paper Rachel had given me on the coffee table where I'd see it first thing in the morning. I didn't know what it said yet, but I knew I'd do whatever it asked. Because if Rachel could find me after 10 years just to say thank you, just to return the favor, then I owed it to both of us to try. For the first time in months, I went to bed feeling something other than numb. I felt hope, just a tiny spark of it, but it was there. And as I drifted off to sleep, I thought about that girl on the bridge 10 years ago, and how a 5-minute conversation had saved her life. Maybe 5 minutes could save mine too. The next morning I woke up and for a moment everything felt normal. Then I remembered. The knock at midnight. Rachel, the notebook, the promise. I sat up in bed and looked at the coffee table where I'd left the folded paper. My phone showed it was 9 in the morning. I'd actually slept through the night for the first time in weeks. No waking up at 3 a.m. to stare at the ceiling. No anxiety keeping me awake until dawn. Just solid, dreamless sleep. I made coffee, actually brewed a proper pot instead of instant, and sat down to open the paper Rachel had left me. My hands trembled a little as I unfolded it. Inside, in neat handwriting, were 3 things. 1, call your sister. 2. Finish one project you abandoned. 3. Help a stranger. I read them again. They seemed simple, but each one felt like climbing a mountain. I hadn't called my sister in weeks. I had about 15 unfinished projects gathering dust on my hard drive and in my closet. And helping a stranger? I barely left the house anymore, but I'd promised. And after everything Rachel had told me, after seeing proof that I wasn't as invisible as I thought, I knew I had to try. I picked up my phone and stared at my sister's contact. Her name was Jenny. She was 3 years older than me and had always been the responsible one, the one who had it all together. After my divorce, she'd tried so hard to help me, but I'd pushed her away. I'd ignored her calls, responded to her texts with one-word answers, and eventually she'd stopped trying as much. I couldn't blame her. My finger hovered over the call button. What would I even say? Sorry I've been a ghost for months? Sorry I shut you out when you were just trying to help? It felt too big, too complicated. But Rachel's words echoed in my mind. 10 minutes. That's all it took to save someone's life. 10 minutes of real conversation. I pressed the button. The phone rang 3 times and I almost hung up. Then Jenny's voice came through, surprised and cautious. Lisa, is everything okay? Hey, I said, and my voice cracked immediately. Yeah, I'm okay. I wanted to call you. Is this a good time? There was a pause and I could hear her moving to somewhere quieter. Of course it's a good time. I always have time for you. I've been worried about you. And just like that, the wall I'd built crumbled. I know, I'm sorry. I've been terrible. I've been going through something and I didn't know how to talk about it. Talk to me now. Jenny said gently. Please, I miss my sister, so I did. I told her about the isolation, the depression, the feeling of being worthless. I didn't tell her about Rachel yet. That felt too private, too new. But I told her I'd been struggling, really struggling, and that I was sorry for pushing her away. Jenny was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said something that shocked me. I've been there too. What? Last year, she said. After my promotion fell through and Tom and I had that rough patch in our marriage, I felt exactly like you're describing. Like nothing I did mattered. Like I was failing at everything. I didn't tell anyone either. I just smiled and pretended everything was fine. I'd had no idea. Jenny always seemed so perfect, so put together. Why didn't you tell me? Same reason you didn't tell me, she said. I was ashamed. I thought I should be stronger. I thought asking for help meant I was weak. But Lisa, it's not weak. It's actually the bravest thing we can do. We talked for over an hour. Really talked in a way we hadn't in years. We shared things we'd never told each other before. Our fears, our struggles, our moments of doubt. And by the end of the call, I felt lighter. Not fixed, not suddenly happy, but connected. Like I'd found a lifeline I didn't know I needed. Can we do this more often? I asked. Just talk like this? Yes, Jenny said immediately. Please, yes. I've missed you so much. After we hung up, I looked at the notebook Rachel had given me. I opened it and wrote, called my sister. Told her the truth. Found out she's been struggling too. We're not as alone as we think. 1 task down. 2 to go. I looked around my apartment at all my abandoned projects. Half-finished illustrations. A children's book I'd started writing. Designs for a friend's wedding invitation that I'd never completed. A logo redesign for a nonprofit that had asked for my help months ago. That last one stuck with me. The nonprofit was called Youth Arts Initiative. They worked with kids from low-income neighborhoods, teaching them art and music and theater. I'd promised them a new logo. And then I just stopped. Stopped answering emails, stopped working on it. Let it fall by the wayside with everything else. I opened my laptop for the first time in 2 weeks. The design file was still there, about 60% complete. I looked at it with fresh eyes. It wasn't bad. Actually, it was pretty good. I'd created this logo in the shape of a tree, with branches that turned into paintbrushes and musical notes and theater masks. The roots spelled out "Way." It was creative, meaningful, exactly what they had asked for. Why had I stopped? I knew why. Because I'd stopped believing anything I created mattered. Because I'd convinced myself that my work was worthless, that I was worthless. But looking at this design now, after everything Rachel had told me, I could see it differently. This wasn't just a logo. This was something that would represent an organization helping kids. Kids who maybe felt as lost and worthless as I'd felt. Kids who needed art in their lives the same way I'd once needed it. I spent the entire afternoon finishing it. fine-tuning the colors, perfecting the typography, making sure every element balanced properly. When I was done, I sat back and looked at it. It was good. Really good. Maybe the best work I'd done in years. I sent it to the director of Youth Arts Initiative with an email apologizing for the delay and explaining I'd been dealing with some personal issues. Within an hour, she responded. She loved it. She said it was perfect. She said she'd already sent it to her board, and they were all thrilled. She thanked me profusely and said the kids were going to love seeing this on their t-shirts and banners. I cried again, but this time it was different. It was relief. It was pride. It was the feeling of creating something meaningful again. I added another entry to my notebook. Finished the Youth Arts Initiative logo. It's going to help kids. My work matters, 2 down, 1 to go. Help a stranger, this was the hardest one. How do you help a stranger when you barely interact with strangers? When you barely leave your house? But I thought about Rachel on that bridge and how a simple conversation had saved her life. Maybe helping a stranger didn't mean doing something huge. Maybe it just meant showing up and being present. I decided to go to a coffee shop. I hadn't been to one in months. I put on clean clothes, actual jeans instead of sweatpants, and walked to the cafe 3 blocks from my apartment. The one I used to go to all the time before I became a hermit. The barista recognized me. Hey, long time no see. The usual. Yeah, I said, surprised she remembered. Thanks. I sat at a table by the window with my laptop, pretending to work, but mostly just watching people. Watching the world go by. Remembering what it felt like to be part of it. That's when I noticed her. A young woman, maybe early 20s, sitting at the table next to mine. She had a laptop open, and she was staring at it with this expression of complete frustration. She kept typing and deleting, typing and deleting. At one point, she put her head in her hands, and I saw her shoulders shake. She was crying. I knew I should mind my own business. I knew the old me, the pre-midnight knock me, would have just looked away and pretended not to notice. But I thought about Rachel. I thought about task number 3. I thought about that girl on the bridge who just needed someone to see her. I leaned over slightly. Hey, are you okay? She looked up, startled, wiping her eyes quickly. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm fine. You don't look fine, I said gently. And that's okay. Bad days happen. What are you working on? She hesitated, probably wondering if she should talk to a stranger. But something in my voice, or maybe just the fact that someone had asked, made her answer. Graphic design project for school. It's my final assignment and I'm failing this class. If I don't pass, I lose my scholarship. But I can't get it right. Everything I make looks terrible. My professor hates my work. I'm starting to think I'm just not talented enough for this. My heart squeezed. I knew that feeling. I knew exactly that feeling. Can I see? I asked. She turned her laptop to show me. It was a poster design for a fictional event. The composition was cluttered, the fonts were fighting each other, and the colors were muddy. But underneath all that, I could see potential. I could see she had good instincts, she just needed guidance. Okay, first of all, I said, you are talented. I can tell just by looking at this.